Assalamu alaikum. Today we will talk about the anatomy of the muscular system of the human body. Firstly, we will talk about the extensor carpi ulnaris muscle. Extensor carpi ulnaris muscle is the muscle of the forearm. This extensor carpi ulnaris muscle present at the posterior compartment of the forearm. This muscle also called extensor compartment of forearm, and it is one of the superficial muscle of the posterior compartment of the forearm. Now we talk about the origin and insertion of this extensor carpi ulnaris muscle. So this muscle originates through the common extensor tendon from the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. The originating tendon form muscle belly, which runs along the whole forearm length and arrived at the distal end of the forearm. At the arrived of the distal end, this muscle belly forms a single tendon, and that tendon inserted on the dorsal aspect of the base of fifth metacarpal bone. Now we talk about the action performed by this extensor carpi ulnaris muscle. As the name of this muscle is extensor carpi, its name also indicates or hinted that these muscles extend the carpi. So it means that this extensor muscles extend the hands at the wrist joint. As this muscle is also inserted at the ulnar aspect of hand, this muscle have also important role in wrist abduction. Now we will discuss about the anatomy of the brachioradialis muscle. Now we discuss about the nerve supply of the flexor carpi ulnaris muscle. The extensor carpi ulnaris muscle receives its nerve supply from deep branch of radial nerve. Now we discuss about the anatomy of the brachioradialis muscle. We study the whole anatomy of the brachioradialis muscle. Brachioradialis muscle is this long fusiform muscle, and it is one of the two muscles of the lateral compartment of the forearm. The second muscle of this compartment is the extensor carpi radialis longus muscle. This muscle forms the lateral boundary of this triangular shaped area called cubital fossa. Now we discuss about the origin and insertion of this brachioradialis muscle. This muscle originates from the superior 2/3 of the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus. Then the middle of the forearm, this muscle forms the flat tendon, and this long tendon inserted at the lateral aspect of distal part of radius, just superior to the styloid process. Now we discuss about the action performed by the brachioradialis muscle. The brachioradialis muscle flexes the forearm at the elbow joint. Now we discuss about the nerve supply of the brachioradialis muscle. Brachioradialis muscle receives nerve supply from the radial nerve. Now we will discuss about the another anatomy of the forearm muscle called the extensor digitorum muscle. The extensor digitorum muscle is the extensor muscle of the forearm. So this extensor digitorum muscle is this long fusiform muscle, and this muscle is one of the superficial muscle of the posterior compartment of the forearm. Now we will discuss about the origin and insertion of this extensor digitorum muscle. So you can see the origin of the extensor digitorum muscle is through the common extensor tendon from the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. After origin of this muscle, fibers of this muscle forms the muscle belly, which travels inferiorly toward the distal of the forearm. And when these muscles arrived at the distal part of the forearm, they divide into 4 tendons. While these 4 tendons travel deeply under the extensor retinaculum of wrist. These 4 tendons of the extensor digitorum muscles are inserted at the bases of the middle and distal phalanges of lateral forefingers. That is the index, that is the middle, the ring, and the little finger. Now we discuss about the action or function performed by this extensor digitorum muscle. As the name indicates, extensor, so this muscle is essential for the finger extension. The second action performed by this muscle that was not described, that is the fingers abduction. That means this muscles abduct the fingers and this muscles moves the fingers away from the middle finger, as this muscles also crosses the wrist joint, so this muscle is also important in the wrist extension. Now we discuss about the nervous supply of the extensor digitorum muscle. This extensor digitorum muscles receive its nerve supply from deep branch of radial nerve. So this is the radial nerve and this is the deep branch of radial nerve, which actually supply the extensor digitorum muscle. Now we will discuss another forearm muscle anatomy called supinator muscle. Now let's we study about whole anatomy of this supinator muscle. So supinator is this flat fusiform muscle of the forearm. This muscle lies posterior or extensor compartment of the forearm. It occupies the deep layer of muscles of posterior or extensor compartment of the forearm. Now we will discuss about the origin or insertion of this supinator muscle. Origin of this supinator muscle is broad and it originates from the lateral epicondyle of the humerus and the annular ligament of proximal radioulnar joint and the supinator crest of ulna. After originating the muscle fibers of the supinator muscles, these fibers inferolaterally travel over the elbow joint, and these fibers of the supinator muscles inserted at the posterior, lateral and interior aspect of the neck and shaft of radius bone. Now we talk about the action performed by the supinator muscle. So the name of this muscle clarify the muscle name is supinator. So this muscle supinate the forearm at the proximal radioulnar joint. Now let's we talk about the nerve supply of the supinator muscle as the other extensor muscles of the forearm. In the same way, this supinator muscle also receive its nerve supply from deep branch of radial nerve. Now we see the lateral view of the forearm. This nerve is called radial nerve and they further divide into deep branch of radial nerve. This deep branch radial nerve also called posterior interosseous nerve of forearm. Well, this nerve is muscular branch to supinator muscle. So this is all about the supinator muscle of the forearm. Stay connected. Shukriya. Allah Hafiz.